This is the Bush Whisperer from the Penguin Sanctuary, the heart of the Penguin Sanctuary, shall I say, Cape Agulhas, Cape Town, the most beautiful place in the world. Come to talk to you about the archetypes. The archetypes, what are they? Well, Jung had quite a write-up about the archetypes, and people seldomly understand what they are. For example, you go to India and you find there's a lot of superstition in India, and people are believing that they are worshipping these archetypes. And we weren't supposed to worship the archetypes. We were supposed to show recognition and awareness, which engenders respect. And the respect brings about the sense of wisdom and understanding of the proportions of being and the structure of being. So when you go to India, you hear about all these different god forms: Ganesha, Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu. These are essentially archetypal structures, the forms of consciousness that become manifest, where Shiva represents consciousness and the transcendent potential of consciousness. And Ganesha represents that which is the creative impulse, the intelligence in action, dynamically, producing the power that generates this profound creative experience of life. And we consider something like Brahma being the point of intelligence, and Vishnu being that which sustains and holds things together, essentially manifesting in the form of love as a manifest, Krishna. So these archetypes, were they meant to be something that we worshipped solely, or were they meant to be a part of the greater all, a part of the one, a part of the structure of what we can call God? And what is God? Oh my gosh, we could get into trouble with this one. God is the totality of expression, of intelligence that becomes energy, that becomes form, the pattern and the law, which is the structure through which intelligence moves in order to manifest. And the mani, the many, the mani, is that differentiated law of unity that restructures the manifold natures of being back into the causal effects that become the manifestation. Causality being the element of Mars. And these structures were worshipped in old times by people that didn't understand the relativity of being, and that all of these structures and parts of the archetypes are just a greater part of a structuring reality which is infinitely, profoundly small and great. For the nature of reality isn't what it seems. What I experienced when I was a little boy and I fell into a swimming pool and lost my life, and luckily was saved after, that little gland in the head pops and squirts out all the juices into the brain, causing the vibrational field to become all that you're aware of. I noticed that the universe was very small and that I was big. It's a very weird experience. Almost as if I was on the outside and the universe was on the inside. And this is the fundamental nature of the causal experience, when one is leaving the causal plane of existence behind. And the first thing that became relevantly obvious to me was that there were three things coming out of what I can only describe as a ball of wool, unwinding, and that they were wound by the structure of memory, and I was afraid that my memories of my father would be lost. That was what was very profound of me, because at that time I was only 3 years old. And we live in this structured reality which we consider as the Trinity, which is effectively the consciousness manifesting as energy, becoming form through the powers of Saturn, time, the Lord of time. And yet again, another archetype, which relates to the Manipura chakra. The Mani meaning the gem, many-sided gem, and Ma, Ni, 2 syllables from the Sanskrit, which relate to the Svadhisthana chakra and the Muladhara chakra. Svadhisthana chakra relating to the causal influence of that which is becoming a reaction to the structures of being projected into the sphere of knowing. And so this causal stream, which is the effects of cause and effect, as Hermes has structured the 7 layers of being. And those 7 layers of being, the 7 aspects of Hermes, those laws, are effectively the laws of the Elohim of the Jews, you see. So all of these archetypes come back to the same reality, whether we're studying Kabbalah, whether we're studying the 7 chakras of the Vedic system, whether we're studying the Hermetics, it's all the same reality. These are the fundamental archetypes being reflected. And it's important for us to understand, if we're chanting mantra, we're not praying to a deity, as is said by people that teach these things. We are invoking the active principle of that archetype to become evident and active within our consciousness in order for us to understand and experience that aspect of the universe that is represented by that archetypal intelligence that rules over that aspect, and that there are fundamentally 7 aspects which are actually drawn from a more fundamental 3 aspects which come from the fundamental primary unity aspect. So the structure of being is really a numerological structure, if we want to understand it, where 1 becomes 3, 3 becomes 7, and 7 becomes 12. And 7's mystic number is 6, the hexagram, and 12 is the mystic number of 13. And when we start understanding how these things work, we start noticing the basis of reality and why astrology is what it is, and why we have these belief systems, and why the human body is structured the way it is structured. Another thing to understand about the archetypes is that they are a part of us, and we are a part of them, and that the organs within our bodies are manifestations of these archetypes. And I like to think of the organs within the body as having been different beings long time ago that started to cooperate so closely that they started to become one thing. In much the same way that you can understand the blue bottle, for example, the man o' war, Portuguese man o' war, which is essentially 3 different beings, 3 different colonies of beings living in a single living unity, and that they are becoming one body, evolving. It's a very slow process, this creation. The 7 days of creation is not 7 days, as it seems to indicate in the Bible. It's a bit of a metaphor. These are great days. These are 7 times in which the universe has been created and destroyed. This is all quite well documented in the yugas of the Vedic story. So to understand the archetypes is to understand the aspects of ourself, is to understand the organs and the intelligence that they hold within our bodies, to understand the structures of being that construct the aspects and elements of our mind that are reflected in the aspects and elements of our body, as they are reflected in the aspects and elements of the Elohim, the 7 chakras, the 7 principles of Hermes, which are living, intelligent principles. For the laws of nature are not dead. They are not just things as we think of them. They are living principles. And when we breathe by the virtue of these living principles that construct versions of themselves and patterns. And so their numbers become more constructed in terms of reflection. And all things reflect within other things the same potentialities. And cross-referencing back to themselves becomes something else. And so the myriad possibilities of being are locked within these basic 7 principles that encompass the totality of being. And it's important for us to realize this, because when we realize this, we start to demystify this occult therapeutics of people believing that they need to bless you, people believing that they need to worship a deity. The whole idea of the principles of worship are really about creating a personal bond with the intelligence that rules over that aspect of creation, that archetype. And it's fundamental to understanding that once we start to develop a personal relationship with these aspects of ourself, aspects of our body, aspects of creation, for as above, so below, we start to unlock something deep within ourselves, which is the essential knowledge and wisdom that comes from these 7 spirits of the Elohim. And these are the fundamental forms of creation that, according to all our ancient doctrines, have created the universe. And by ancient, I mean the Buddhist, the Hindu, the Jewish, the Muslim, the Vedic. They're all the same. They're all the same teachings. When one has investigated these occult therapeutics and mystical knowledges from all the different traditions, one starts to notice a similitude, that everything is speaking the same language. And as one develops one's ability to understand and connect with the archetypes, one sees them expressed in all other beings, in living beings, creatures, animals, plants, trees. And one notices that there's this very simple reflection of certain principles within all things and patterns, how they mix. The 3 fundamental colors, red, yellow, blue, mix to form all the other 7 colors. And those 7 colors mix again to form 12 colors. And those colors mix again to form all the different colors that we can see. And the eye sees and counts so many versions of red and blue and green and yellow and colors in between these spectrums that we forget that they are all essentially 3 colors. And so it is with the archetypes of being. There are 3 fundamental principles: the creative, the destructive, and the principle of cohesion between the 2, as we know. So I hope I have brought a little bit of wisdom into the darkness, and wish you all so much love. Be well, keep it true, keep it real. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.